DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as DreAllDay, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how and why I create endless content. And this is going to be a two-part series where I'm going to explain how I do it, why I do it, where am I going with this, is there a specific reason why I create as much material as I create. I'm going to answer all of those questions here today that maybe you're wondering about, maybe you're not, but now that I brought it up, now you're probably thinking about it. So I don't even really need to give too much of a background for this, just to make sure all of you understand what content is. Content is material that people put out, usually online, that is free of charge, that is designed to ostensibly give you a test drive of who I am and to bring you deeper into my world. So maybe you'll subscribe, you'll continue to follow, you will engage, you'll get on the list, whatever it is that I have going on that I'm asking you to take a deeper step. This might just be as simple as just subscribe to the show or follow me on Instagram or whatever, subscribe to my YouTube channel, whatever it may be. That's what content is. Free material that is designed to engage and entertain and or inform people so that they come deeper into your world. So that's what I mean when I say content. Now, I'm a person who does create a lot of content. I've been creating content since 2005. When there was basketball stuff in 2010, I added in mindset to the basketball. In 2015, I dropped the basketball and just kept the mindset. And then around 2020, I started talking a lot more about business things. So I had 10 years of basketball overlapping with what's now going on 15 years of mindset and adding in 5 years where I've been really focused on, in addition to the mindset, the business material. So I've created probably 40,000 pieces of content over the years. And when you're talking just original content, probably somewhere around original content, I'd say probably around the 20,000 range at this point in terms of content. This show alone, over 3,000 episodes here every day since 2016, a bunch of written material, spoken word material, and video material. So I've been in the content game for a while now, and I'm going to tell you why I've been in the game the way that I have and where it's going from here. And you should all be listening, because you may want to get into this content game for some of the reasons that I'm going to lay out here today that maybe you haven't thought of up to this point. Point number one, topic again here today is how and why I create endless content. This is going to be a two-part series. Number one is observation and opinions. I'm a very observant person, and I notice things that people say, do, and I either identify, understand, or I attempt to suss out the reasons behind people's behaviors. That's a big part of just my work in general. This is what this person did. This is what I saw. And I'm trying to identify, understand, or just pull out why would this person take this action based on this circumstance. And the better I get at doing this, the more ammunition it gives me to talk about things like human nature, human decisions, how certain thoughts and actions, things that we do, and thoughts and actions we do, and the different outcomes that result from those thoughts and actions. Further, I am willing to share not just my observations, such as a scientist will tell you his observations. This is what I noticed. I studied this chemical, I studied this animal, and these are the observations that I came with. That's what scientists do. I also mix in my opinions. Now, most scientists don't do that. So I tell you my personal opinions on these things in addition to telling you my observations. And my opinions are based around what I suspect are the reasons why people do certain things and my perspective on those reasons. So I will not only tell you what I saw, I'll tell you what I think about what I saw. I'm going to tell you why I believe what happened, and what I think about the why. That's what I do. That can pretty much encapsulate the content that you have come to know me for right there, just breaking it down in that way. Good thing is, all human beings have an endless amount of opinions. Every one of you listens to this has a bunch of opinions on a bunch of things. What I've done is develop the ability to share these opinions consistently and compendiously in such a way that can be informative, insightful, entertaining, maybe a combination of all three for an audience of people. On top of all this, I like being able to explain the why of actions, whether I'm talking about the why of my own actions or my theories on the why behind other people's actions. As I did in yesterday's episode where I was talking about Michael Jordan and his high level of focus, I'm telling you my theory behind why he was the way that he was, and also my theory behind why players today compared to Michael Jordan are the way that they are. Different circumstances, and I'm just trying to suss out and theorize as to why people do things differently, despite the fact that we can see the results of someone doing it one way. So I feel it is insightful for people to understand who may see an activity but not quite understand the reasoning behind the activity. So I try to do that when it comes to other people's actions that you may know about or that I may describe to you. And I also do the same thing when it comes to my own actions. I will tell you something that I did, and then I will explain to you, not a theory, as to exactly why I did it, because I can read my own mind. I can tell you exactly what I was thinking when I did what I did. I cannot read other people's minds. And sometimes you can't even trust what they say they were thinking, because not everybody's very good at explaining it. But when I'm talking about my own actions, I can very clearly explain it. And when I'm talking about someone else's actions, I tell you what I think is the reason behind what they did, and you can draw your own conclusions. But this is one of the reasons why I create so much content, because I'm just an observer of outcomes in human nature, and I like to kind of break down and explain why these things are happening. So the way that I describe that is I take complex situations and I break them down into simple bite-sized pieces. And with that breakdown being in my head, I like to put it out to the world because I believe that other people could benefit from it if they understood it the way that I understood it, the way I understand it rather. And this is the way this is how I get in the game of creating content. And this is not just related to any specific subject. This could be business, this could be mindset, this could be, back in the days, it was basketball. So that's what I did with basketball. I would just break things down that any basketball player knew about and could see, but I would break it down and explain it and demonstrate it in a way that basketball players appreciated it. So if I was just talking about it, then it would not be as valuable because I'm not out there playing it. And if I was just doing it but not explaining it, then a lot of players still couldn't benefit from it because they need someone to explain it to them. Because you can watch TV and see somebody do moves on the basketball court, but my ability to explain it combined with my ability to actually do it is what gave me credibility. When it came to mindset, what helped was the fact that I was taking something that is fully intangible, the way that we think, and I was making it clear enough that people could understand it and possibly apply it. That was the benefit when it came to mindset. And when it comes to business, it's simply something that is not taught in schools, not the kind of business that I'm in, but a lot of people want to get into it. So they have to get the education somehow, some way, because you're not going to get it in your normal K through 12 education. So that's where I'm adding value in the marketplace, amongst other things. But I'm just giving you a high level of my ability to observe and describe what I've observed and how it leads to me creating content. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how and why I create endless content. Number 2, stealing and borrowing. So yes, I am a thief. And I mean that metaphorically, because while I don't actually steal anybody else's content ideas, which would actually be impossible, functionally impossible, being that I've created more content than anyone else out there. So if anything, they would have to steal from me rather than me stealing from them. What I will do is take a good idea that I hear from someone else. I will create my own version of that idea, and then I will make it mine. When I do that, I'll tell you that, hey, I heard somebody say something on some platform, and I like the framework of the idea they threw out there. So what I'm going to do is break down, I'm going to take what they said, I'm going to expand on it with my own opinions and thoughts and observations and experiences. And now I'm going to take their idea, I'm going to make it into my own piece of content. And when I do that, I tell you it. I tell you exactly where I got it from, who I heard say something, and now I'm going to make my own version of it because I like the concept, because I believe you all, the listeners, will benefit from it. So I will take a good idea that someone else shares and, again, come up with my own Dre Baldwin branded version of that same idea. And again, I always give credit when I do this. I will tell you I heard someone make a good point, take their point, expand it, now have my own piece of material. Understand that nothing in the universe is 100% brand new. There are no original ideas. Every one of us is building on what has come before us, whether we consciously think about it or not. And what currently exists, we use to make new things, quote unquote new. And if someone doesn't know about the thing that we got it from, then it seems brand new to us. I remember back in the 90s, there was a music producer by name of Puff Daddy. Many of you know him now as P. Diddy. And last we heard, P. Diddy was still locked up on, he's incarcerated on suspicion of charges. He hasn't gone to trial yet, so he's just on suspicion right now. He is incarcerated. but Puff Daddy was in the 90s a very popular guy in the hip hop music industry. He was mostly a producer. He did a lot of things as an artist as well. He was mostly a producer. It's how he most got his name known, because he was a producer behind some very popular artists such as Jodeci, Mary J. Blige, Notorious B.I.G., Mace, eventually himself, and many others. And one of the things that a lot of people from an older generation, let's say like my parents' generation, people who are in their 60s now, did not like about Puff Daddy, at least those who knew hip hop music, didn't like about Puff Daddy, was that he would take songs from back in the days and then he would sample those songs. In other words, he would take a piece of an old record from the 60s or the 70s. He would use that piece in a different format and lay it underneath the vocals for a rap song. So he would take some R&B record from the 60s or the 70s, and then he would sample that record, and it would be the bass, not the bass line, but the foundation of a new song for a rapper to rap over in the 90s. And what's interesting is someone like myself, being I was born in the 80s, I would hear the song, and to me, it was a brand new song because I didn't even recognize the sample because I wasn't around back in the 60s and 70s to even recognize the song that he was pulling it from. But then if you went and looked at the credits and then you would hear people explain it, then you could find out, oh, that was a song that he took from back in the day. I don't even remember that old song. I only know the new song. And people who are older recognize the old song, and they would sometimes criticize Puffy or Puff Daddy and saying, well, this guy is just stealing stuff from back then and creating something quote unquote new with it. This is not art. This is not original what he's doing. A lot of people would say that in the 90s, if you borrowed from something from the past and you made a new version of it, you were looked at as inauthentic. What I'm telling all of you is that none of us is 100% authentic because we are all borrowing from the past. Even if you don't know you're borrowing from the past, you are. All right, that's the point. Songs that come out today where someone is sampling an quote unquote old song, I'm in the age bracket where I might recognize it because, oh, that's a song from the 90s that you're recreating, and someone who's 22 today will hear it and think that it's brand new. They don't know that that song came from something else because they don't know what they don't know. But I know because I'm a little bit older than them. The whole point here, folks, is that we're all building on something that has come from the past to make what we consider to be new and may even be able to pass off to other people as new because they don't have the same frames of reference. Podcasting itself, this show that you're listening to, podcasting is the radio. All of you are familiar with the radio. Some of you may be a lot more familiar than others, but all podcasting is the radio mixed with TiVo, which is basically watch TV when you feel like it, combined with the internet and combined with no gatekeepers who chooses who gets to have a show. So you take radio, which is you get to change the channel and listen to anything you want audioly. Then you combine it with TiVo, which is watching things when you feel like it, not when they come on, but whenever you want to. Combine that with internet access and combine it with anybody can get in, you get podcasting. So you see how podcasting is just a combination of a bunch of things that we already know about? I gave you the 4. Radio 1, scheduling on your own time 2, the internet number 3, and no gatekeepers number 4. Combine those 4, you get podcasting. You combine blogging with a limited amount of space, you get an app like Twitter, which is now X, where the space is a lot bigger, but it's a similar concept still to this day. Or you combine the news with short blurbs and you get social media. So people don't have to read the whole story or watch the whole show. They can just get a little snippet of it by looking at social media. So it's simply an amalgamation. A lot of things we have here today are amalgamations of things that have already existed. And it's the same with everything else. Nothing is completely original. Everything comes from something else. YouTube, for example, is what? TV mixed with TiVo schedule, mixed with the internet with no gatekeeper. So you just swap out the radio for TV, you get YouTube. You swap out TV for the radio, you get podcasting. All right, they're both using the same frame just for different reasons, different outcomes. So an app like X, formerly known as Twitter, as I just told you, you look at it as blogging briefed, and some people will look at it like a group text chain, but it's just publicly published. So there's a bunch of people having a conversation and the same thing you do in a group text, but now everybody can see it. So you're publishing it out for the world to notice. None of these are brand new inventions. Again, the only thing brand new is the different ways of combining them, but the things themselves, the actual elements, the source elements are not brand new. None of them are brand new. So it's the same thing when it comes to content. Myself and others, we talk about similar things. There are other people in my lane who talk about similar things, personal development, personal growth. I'm not the only person in the world talking about these things. And we are working off of the same principles, at least those who have actual substance. We're all working off the same principles. We just use different frames, different examples, different stories, and different reasons as to why we have landed on these principles. Again, we come from different roads, but we all end up in the same location because the principles do not change. You listen to anyone else who's talking about personal and professional development from a principled standpoint, we're all going to end up at the same conclusion. Again, we may have different reasons why we came to that conclusion, but we're not going to come to different conclusions because the principles are unbreakable. They're etched in stone. So anybody who's principle based has to come to the same conclusion that I come to. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, how and why I create endless content. Number 3, breaking down and explaining. This is my superpower. My superpower is taking a complex concept, breaking it down and explaining it to others in a way that they can completely understand it, even if the concept is brand new to you. That's what I do best. Doesn't matter the subject. So when you hear me introduce the show every day, I tell you the pillars of what it's about, right? Discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative. When you know what those terms mean, as most of you do, you understand the value of each one of them, right? Discipline is about being consistent, getting things done. Confidence is believing yourself, putting yourself out there. Mental toughness, keep going even when things aren't going great. Personal initiative, don't just sit around and wait, go do something and get started. All of you understand the value of those points. And if that's all it took, then I could just stop there after 30 seconds. I wouldn't need more than one episode and you would get the point. However, when I take things that people have either not thought of at all, or even things you have heard of and thought about many times and agree with, what I do is go further by breaking them down and explaining in detail how they matter, why they matter, how to apply them, where to use them, and different angles from which to look at them. So for example, I have a book on self-discipline, your self-guide to self-discipline, known as the Mirror of Motivation. If you don't have the book, you can get a free copy by going to mirrorofmotivation.com. But also I have another book that talks about another aspect of discipline. It's called The Third Day, the decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. You can get a copy of that one by going to thirddaybook.com. That book is also free. The Third Day is a part of what the Mirror of Motivation is about. As a matter of fact, if you read my book, The Mirror of Motivation, you will notice that there's a chapter in there literally called The Third Day. But I only take about a page and a half to talk about the third day. But because the third day is such a good topic, I decided to go make a book in and of itself just about the third day. As a matter of fact, I have a keynote speech called The Third Day. Why? Because the concept itself was bigger than just that one little chapter I got in Mirror of Motivation. That doesn't mean every chapter in that book becomes a book. It depends on which ones people are responding to. The whole point being, all I'm talking about is discipline. Mirror Motivation and The Third Day are about discipline. They're just talking about it from different angles and for different reasons so you can better understand it. I played professional basketball overseas for almost a decade. I have 4 books about overseas basketball. The Overseas Basketball Blueprint, which gives you the overall of how to get over there. There's The Truth About Overseas Exposure Camps, which is how I got into pro basketball. I went to an exposure camp. It was like a job fair in order to play my way into an opportunity. I talk about agents in professional basketball, how to get yourself an agent, because that's how I got started. An agent is basically a go-between who knows the people who have the job opportunities and they know you, so they can basically connect you to like a middleman. And Overseas Basketball Secrets, which talks about the overall of the game and you as far as a professional in a career and the business side of professional basketball. All 4 of these books are basically breaking down overseas basketball in such a way that you can understand it on a very deep level before you go and actually play basketball overseas. But did I have to write those books? No. I could have just made one video and told you, here's what I did to go play overseas. I did A, B, C, and D, and that's how I got overseas. Go do the same thing. Good luck. That video could literally be 45 seconds long. But because of my ability to break things down and explain them, I went and explained these things out and broke them out and made them more comprehensive so that I can give more detail to people who want the detail because they really want to follow a step-by-step process to make it happen. So again, this is my superpower, which is the reason why I do it. It's the reason why I've written 40 books. The reason why I put the show out every day is because breaking things down and explaining them is not only a superpower of mine, but it's also fun for me. I like doing this. Not everybody likes doing it. But again, you have to know yourself. You have to know your strengths. So you need to know where your strength is and what platform or resource or approach serves that strength and something that you actually enjoy. You can have a strength of something that you don't like, but it's something you are good at and that you actually like doing. So I take things that people either haven't thought about at all, or I take something you have thought about, but I break it down and explain it in a way that you're like, damn, I thought about that before, but never that way. So I like to break things down to the smallest common denominators, and that becomes a source of content in and of itself. And again, it's one thing to understand that something is useful. Understand that it's useful to have a place to, let's say, sell things online. It's another thing when I can break down something like, what to sell, where to sell it, why to sell it, how to sell it, how much to charge for it, and who to sell it to. All right, that's a lot more detail than just saying, hey, you should sell stuff on the internet. A lot of people might want to sell stuff on the internet, but if I gave you all those extra pieces, now you might be more inclined to listen to me because you see that I'm breaking it down, which means I probably know what I'm talking about. People just unconsciously have that thought. And that's another thing I'll talk about in a minute. See, all these details are additional pieces of content when you break them down in a more granular way. And this is what I've been doing for a long time. And the more granular you get, the more material you create. An example of this would be to look at the standard operating procedures of a business, for example. A business must go into excruciating detail to create these, what we call SOPs. And why they go into so much detail is because the purpose of an SOP is to be designed such that someone else could run this business without ever talking to the person who created the SOP. That means the SOP needs to be so detailed as to basically download all the things you know about running a business and put it into a documented format to where somebody else could do everything that you do without you having to tell them what to do because you already told them by documenting it. That's why documentation is so important. For any of you who want to build something that could possibly expand beyond you, you have to document what you do. And the more detailed that documentation, the longer the documentation is going to get. If I just keep documenting stuff, I'll go from having 3 videos explaining what to do to having 500 videos to 1,000 videos explaining what to do. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. This is the point. This is the reason why so many people don't have the discipline to document what they do, which means they can never remove themselves from the situation because you always have to be there because you have all the knowledge. But your documentation can be all your knowledge, just it's all your knowledge on paper, quote unquote. So when I worked at McDonald's, I saw the manager, her name was Mary. I saw her one day walking around with a binder that was basically the guidebook to running a McDonald's restaurant. And Ronald McDonald never came to our restaurant and told Mary how to run the McDonald's. Why? Because the binder, that big 300-page binder she was carrying around, told her exactly what to do. And because Hamburger University was a real place, she had gone to and been trained as to how to run a McDonald's based on the system that McDonald's had created. The reason why McDonald's is because they have such a tight system that has every single step of their process documented to where no one individual person is the key to the business. The system is the key to the business. There's a hint in there if you're paying attention. And again, if you were to explain how McDonald's works, you could do so in a paragraph. Sell burgers, offer them fries, make sure to get a drink or a milkshake to go with it, charge them the money, collect the money, and say, have a nice day. Thank you for coming visiting McDonald's. But you can't run a business with just that. Now, you need the 300 pages to explain it. You get it? So this is one of my superpowers and also something that I actually enjoy. So again, make sure you get that combination. Recapping today's class was a part 1 of a 2-part series, how and why I create endless content. Number 1, observation and opinions. I notice things and I have opinions on the things that I notice, and I like to articulate that and share it with you. Number 2, stealing and borrowing. I do not get all my ideas from sitting in an empty cave and they just pop into my head. I wish I was that smart, but I'm not. I'm smart, but not that smart. So what I do is borrow and steal from observations, things that happen to me, things I see happen to others, the things I hear other people say and do, and then I go make my own versions of it because again, I'm observant and I'm constantly in my mind is already trained to think about how can I make some material out of this thing that just happened. And number 3, breaking down and explaining things. I love to break things down and explain them. It is my superpower. It is the thing that I am best at and is the thing that people in my audience, such as you listening to, appreciate. So you got to find a combination, something that you're good at, something that you enjoy, and something that the market actually wants. That's what I found in breaking things down and explaining them in their simplest common denominator so that people can understand exactly how these things work. The superpower for me is that I can do this with pretty much any subject. Doesn't matter what it is. Used to be basketball. Nowadays, his mindset is business. In the future, could be something else. We'll see. All that said, tomorrow we get into part 2 of this series, how and why. We want to get to what this stuff actually does. So I told you why I'm doing it or how I'm doing it. Now we're going to talk about what are the tangible benefits of doing things like this, because there are some things business-wise, professionally, that you should be aware of that are happening now and will be happening in the future. Tomorrow we'll get into that. Between now and then, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, learn more about who we're working with, why we work with them, how we're helping them, and how you could or should be next. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all